Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the Paigncast. This is a podcast where we try to shine a light on the people that brighten up our city. I want to apologize for the delay. We have a little bit of a gap between episodes 3 and 4. That is because we got new microphones. You're hearing them here for the first time. So hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. I was looking at the channel. We have 30 total subscribers to the YouTube channel right now, which is fantastic.
Boom.
We have had 3 episodes. So if my math is correct, with 30 subscribers, 3 episodes, after episode 4, we will have 400,000 subscribers is what we are going for. So again, let's go ahead. We're at 30. Let's get that up to, 400,000, I would say, before episode 5. That'd be great. So if you guys could just go ahead and subscribe, that'd be wonderful.
It's important to set reasonable expectations.
I think so. Listen, before I introduce our next guest, I want to say I am proud to announce we have our first ever ad read. You guys may recognize the sponsor of this video. These are the notes that we have here. As many of you know, the real estate market is absolutely booming right now. If you are looking to work with someone you can trust, call Matt Walters with the Nate Evans Group at eXp Realty. It's always grind time, prime time when Matt is working for you. Thank you to Matt Walters for the sponsorship. And I want to say this. All of these sponsorship proceeds go directly to Veronica Mullen, who is the backbone of this podcast. So if you are interested in a sponsorship of some future episodes here, let me know. Feel free to reach out to me. I will plug anything you want. I'll do your business. I will do just you in general, a message to someone you like or dislike. I will plug whatever you would like here. It is up for the taking. So, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest for today's episode. If you are friends with me on Facebook or you have followed me at all, you will recognize him as we have done some events together. We work together. Is Mr. David Nelson from Flat Branch Home Loans. David, welcome to the Paigncast.
Thanks, Austin.
I'm glad to have you here. Before we get started here, I have some Paigncast merch for you.
Nice.
There you go. That's for you. You don't have to put it on right now.
Okay.
But
well,
you can. You don't have to. Don't.
Okay.
But you can.
Well, I was thinking, give the people what they want.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. That's for you, though.
Boy.
Take that with you. Listen, I want to talk mortgages. Before we jump into stuff, plug, promote, whatever you've got out there. Tell us where the people can find you.
Yeah. So, I'm a mortgage lender with 217 Mortgage here in Champaign. Our parent company is Flat Branch Home Loans. I'm based out of Columbia, Missouri. You can reach me at 217mortgage.com. My email is dnelson@fbhl.com. You can always get me there. You can call me on my cell, text me, 309-368-8175. Shameless plug for my wife's new salon that we just opened up here a couple of months ago. It's Align Salon. It's over off of Devonshire by Harvest Market. But real cool place. Completely gutted it. It looks awesome in there. And
it does.
We've got a bunch of great stylists working there. So
sweet. Awesome. Yeah. So listen, I want to jump into 217 Mortgage, but before we do that, I want you to take me through the career trajectory. I want you to walk me back to whenever you kind of started to get into your customer service sales role, and then how did we kind of get to where you are today at 217?
Yeah. So after college, I finished up with college in would have been 2010.
And where'd you go to school?
U.O.A.
Okay, nice.
So, wasn't a best time to find a job or be looking for a job out of college after the recession and everything. So it wasn't great. I took a job at a golf course doing course maintenance and stuff. And at the time, I wanted to go on to become like a teaching professional.
Yeah.
So I figured golf course, best place to do it. So I did that for a while, and I don't know, it was probably November or so of that year. They were like, well, it's winter and it's Illinois, so there's not really anything for you to do here. Yeah. So I was literally driving to the unemployment office. Yeah. And I got a call from my buddy who actually you work with now, Jason Lumberry.
Okay. Sure.
Country agent.
Shout out Jason Lumberry.
He was selling cars at a dealership in Galesburg, Illinois. And he called me and he's like, "Hey man, they just fired somebody over here. If you want a job, come in and apply." So I rerouted.
Yeah.
Went into the dealership, applied. I think I started like 2 days later or something like that. So I was in car sales for a while after that. I worked a couple years at the dealership, and then got pulled away in a weird deal. I had a buddy, my best friend actually called me. He was out in LA doing PR at the time, and one of his clients it owned this cosmeceutical sales company, and they were looking for somebody to rep in Illinois, in Chicago area. So long story short, I ended up taking this job, and I was basically selling makeup for people who've just had like chemical peels, and dude, it was something.
So where do you find, like, how does that even work? Like, are you selling directly to consumer, or are you walking into some of these?
No, I'm walking into med spas and dermatologist's office and trying to get to talk to the doctor there, whoever makes the decisions, right? It was brutal.
So, like, whenever you are walking into these places, like, did you have any training on this at all, or were you just
pretty much no, just pretty much flying by the seat of my pants, figuring it out.
What a crazy thing to jump into sales-wise without really having. I don't even understand the product, let alone like how to sell it.
Honestly, I can't say I really understood it all that much either. It, like, the idea was like these women who had a chemical peel or whatever done, or I guess men too.
Yeah.
They could leave the doctor's office immediately after and not look like
they were burned.
Their whole face just got peeled off. Right. I don't know that they looked all that much better with the product on. It just had a little bit less of a red tint and a little bit more of like a really greasy makeup tint.
You're shinier now, and it's more pink than red. So
that's good. I guess it was a little bit better. But I actually did all right with it. They didn't really pay for a whole bunch of expenses or anything, so I was bleeding money. I did it for almost a year, and by the end of the year, I got it to where I wasn't losing money anymore, which is pretty.
That's what you're looking for in a job.
Pretty good for where I started with it.
Were you selling here in Champaign?
I was all over. Like, I had basically my run of any Midwest state I wanted, so I kind of went all over the place, but mostly up in the Chicago area.
Okay, gotcha. Were you living in Chicago?
No, I was living down here.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you were traveling then to do this stuff too, then?
Yeah, I had a buddy's house that I stayed at up there for a week at a time or so. So most of the time during the week, I'd go up there and stay there, and then just no, man, it was not a good gig.
Sucks.
So then I did that for a while, and then I got a call from a guy I used to work with that was looking for somebody to help him out with a marketing thing for car dealerships. So basically, we put on big events sales for different dealerships all over the country. So I traveled all around. Like, the first one, and how he got me in, was in Hawaii. Okay. Like, hey, we'll pay for your ticket to Hawaii. Whatever you make, just pay us back out of that. 10 days in Hawaii, and so that I did that for a few years. Kind of parlayed that into a job as a sales manager at a dealership in Iowa. That was one of our accounts. And then eventually came back here to Champaign Chrysler and was the sales manager at Champaign Chrysler for about 3 years.
What year did you come back to Champaign then?
It would have been about 2015, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
And I think I left Champaign Chrysler at the end of 2018.
When you were out in Iowa, did you think you'd be coming back to town here? Like, was that always kind of a goal or something that you thought, like, man, it'd be neat if I could get back home? Or were you kind of just going, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you spend any time in Mason City and you're looking to get back wherever you came from. Yeah. It's a nice town.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so that brings you back to town. So then, was that the last job that you had before you got with 217?
Yeah, at Champaign Chrysler, yep.
So then how did you end up making the transition? Like, what was the trajectory there? So you're there for a couple of years. When did you start to kind of think, like, maybe,
Yeah, Justin kind of... So my wife cuts Justin's hair.
Okay. Justin Ginsler, for the people who don't know, was also part of 217.
Yeah. So he'd kind of put feelers out, and we talked a little bit for for several years, just kind of off and on.
Yeah.
He was trying to get me on doing this, and I was, I had a good job.
Sure.
I was making decent money, and it's tough to leave that for something that's kind of uncertain. It's a whole different thing.
Sure.
So that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but it finally came to the point where, I had my son, who's 4 now. He was probably 1 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was just never home
to
see my kids or anything, So I'd leave. I'd be at work at 8:30. I'd get home. If we didn't have any customers staying late, I'd be home at 8:30 or 9.
Yeah.
So I was basically leaving right after the kids got up, and I was getting home as they were going to bed, if I was lucky.
I don't think people realize that that's the car sales world, right? Because you have to be there after hours when people are not working. You got to be there on the weekends. So your schedule doesn't mesh with your spouse. It doesn't mesh with your kids, all of that stuff. And, especially when you're a dad, you're like, damn, I'm working weekends a lot.
It's car sales and just the car business in general is a grind. And fortunately in Illinois, we aren't allowed to sell cars on Sundays. So at least you have that. But there's some surrounding states that Sundays are wide open and people are there. It's
interesting. I didn't realize that you couldn't buy a car on Sunday.
Yeah, you cannot.
In Illinois?
Yep.
Interesting. Huh. Well, at least that part's nice. Your Saturday's gone.
Yeah.
Well, you have one day out of the weekend. So, okay. So now all of a sudden, what year then did you get into mortgages, and when did you kind of decide to make the leap?
Yeah. So I started with Justin we were originally at a local bank here in town in early 2019.
Gotcha.
So yeah. And there's a whole lot to learn with mortgage. It's just all sorts of regulations and different rules. And
sure.
You can do this type of loan. You can't with this. And so just a lot to pick up on and learn. But I think my previous experience with doing sales and finance in the car business was a pretty big help. I knew how to read a credit report. I knew how to talk to people about their credit. I knew how to do all that stuff. So I had a pretty good baseline knowledge of it's different, but a lot of it's the same and similar. So that really helped my transition, I think.
Yeah. And if you see someone who's clearly been burned on their face with a terrible sunburn or something like that, you have some product knowledge in some other directions.
I might even have some samples.
I was going to say, in the back of the car, I've got something for you. If this car doesn't work out, I may still have some suggestions for you. So I go by the Go-To quote. That's just my nickname. I gave it to myself. I have some options here for you. Again, I know that you are your nickname around the office is the Mortgage Ninja for your way to get things done. I want you to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or one of these if it's kind of in the middle. And then these are gifts to you. You take them, do with them what you please. The Monocrat of Mortgage. Try it on.
Yeah.
The Liege of Loans.
I like that.
It's got more of a king vibe to it, a little more medieval.
I like it. More people can understand it too.
The Prince of Pre-Qualification. The Colossus of Close. That's got a Babe Ruth vibe. The Colossus of Close.
It does. Yeah.
The Emperor of Escrow.
The Emperor of Escrow.
That's all I've got. Those are for you. Yeah. Take those. Yeah. Do with those what you would like, but I think they're all home runs. Again, I'm not trying to tell you how to run your business, but
I think they're all solid.
Yeah.
I might stick with Mortgage Ninja.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Again, those are just yours. Yeah. Take those. Those are gifts to you. So one thing that I think people will benefit from is you've got a lot of, hopefully people that are listening that are going to be buying a house at some point, right? Most people out there would love to own their own home at some point. I want you to give some tips to the people to prepare for their first home purchase. Because I think for a lot of people, they learn whether or not they are going to be able to buy a home the first time that they pop on Zillow and they're like, I don't even know where to start. How can people put themselves in the best position to be able to buy a house? Not it has nothing to do with the market, but just to be able to put themselves financially to where a bank will want to give them a loan. What advice would you have on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's really tough to know. No individual person is just going to know I'm definitely going to qualify, right?
Sure.
Nobody's going to know for sure,
right.
Until you talk to somebody. a lot of people have a really good idea whether they will or they won't.
Right.
They'll probably be right.
Sure.
But I think it's important early on. Like, if you're one of those people that are thinking, hey, a year from now, I'm probably going to buy a home.
Yeah.
Talk with me. Talk with, a local mortgage professional.
Yeah.
Don't go to Quicken Loans. You're going to pay way too much.
Sure.
Just stay away from places like that. Talk to somebody here locally
that
knows what they're doing. And
so you think even a year out is a good time to start?
Yeah. Even
gotcha.
even a year. Now, I mean, if you've got an 800 credit score and you're in good shape, like that might be a little bit early.
Sure.
But for most people, it doesn't hurt to start that process way earlier than what you think.
Sure.
Because what I can do for you, even if you're not ready right now, like we can sit down and we can talk, and I can tell you specifically based on your information, like, hey, if you do this or this or these couple things, like you're going to be in a much better position so that we can get you the best possible rate that you could possibly qualify for at the time that you're ready, right? As opposed to, okay, well, you've got a 630 credit score. We can work with that, but we're going to have to do this and this.
Yeah.
We can get kind of everything set up, and it gives us enough time to get your credit score improved. Like a lot of people, I think that's one of the biggest, like nobody understands credit fully. And like how quickly you can improve it or how quickly it can go down if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So I think being able to have those conversations, like you can take someone who's a 580 credit score and get them up to 700 in a year's time.
Okay, gotcha.
No, that's not for everybody,
sure.
but for some people, it definitely works that way. So you could drastically improve your position and how you look to a bank or a mortgage lender in a year's time.
Sure. How early is too early for them to kind of start the process? If they think like I'm 4 years out, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a little bit much. I would say, a year to a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Because like once you get that pre-qualification or you get in a position where you can, like then you start looking. It's just kind of a natural instinct, right?
Sure.
You're going to start looking a little bit more, and there's a better chance if you're looking that you're going to see a house that you want to own.
Sure.
And a lot of times what happens is that time frame ends up moving up a little bit even.
So if someone out there right now is would like to buy a house, I think what I see a lot in my job is people that got off to a bad start with their credit. Kids took out a credit card or something when they were 18, 19. Now all of a sudden their credit's a little bit jacked. What do you recommend to those people?
Again, I mean, talk to me. Let's say it's going to be different for everybody's situation, right? Generally speaking, this might be taboo. I don't know. Like I get a lot of clients, well, I'm going to pay off all my medical collections. And 99% of the time, after I look at stuff, I'm saying, don't do that. That's going to be, I'm not saying don't pay your medical collections. Like those are bills that you owe, pay them eventually. But right now, if our goal is to buy a house, those can wait. Paying those off is not going to help your credit.
Sure.
9.5 times out of 10.
Right.
It's just not. It's still going to show as a derogatory mark on your credit.
Sure.
It's just going to show as paid derogatory. And a lot of times it can even hurt your credit because it's bringing something that's maybe 3, 4, 5 years old.
Yeah.
And when you pay it, it brings it back current. And as collection accounts, especially medical collections, get older and older, they start impacting your score less and less.
Right.
And when you pay it, it brings it back current. And
Interesting.
It's like it's impacting it more.
So someone who wants to try and like if they've got bad credit and they're like, I'm going to get this, because I bet that the natural human instinct is like, I'm going to fix this before I start. I'm going to start working on some of this stuff. And that may actually not be the best bet. It's probably, okay, gotcha.
And one of the biggest things that we can do, like the cash or money in your bank account, can solve a lot of problems.
Sure.
Right. So if you pay out $4,000 to pay off a bunch of medical collections, it's highly unlikely that that's going to improve your credit.
Yeah.
So you probably just paid out $4,000 to do something that's not going to help you at all.
Right.
It's not something we have to count against your debt to income ratio. So typically the best thing you can do is the easiest fix most times is credit card debt, revolving debt utilization ratios. So like, what's the balance on your credit card? What's the limit on your credit card?
Yeah.
What's that look like? Like a lot of times you can grab 30, 40, 50 points by paying down a credit card that has $1,000 limit on it that, you're carrying a $900 balance on it, paying it down to $100 or less. A lot of times for folks will jump their credit score significantly.
Right.
So you kind of the ideal point with credit card debt is you want to be 30% or less, ideally 10% or less of the balance versus what the limit is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the sweet spot.
Nice.
If you're carrying credit cards that, you're 90%, balance versus limit, that's going to be negatively impacting your credit score as
Interesting.
A whole. Significantly.
That's a good tip. So to the people that are in a position to buy right now, they don't have the credit issues. What advice are you giving to people to what can they expect as they're kind of getting into the market right now in Champaign? If it's someone who's like, I want to buy a house this summer, what are you telling them to expect right now?
Yeah, I mean, the market's weird, right? It's different than what we've seen in Champaign County and the surrounding counties.
Yeah.
Probably ever. I keep hearing it's a seller's market. It's a seller's market. And it is, right? People are getting over what they're listing their house for.
Yeah.
Which that's kind of the part that we haven't really seen in Champaign. But with that, home values are being driven up as a whole. So it's not necessarily a negative thing for a buyer.
Yeah.
Because they're getting the benefit of those higher home values as well, right?
Sure.
The house that they bought is going to continue to increase in value and until it doesn't anymore, right?
Sure.
Or doesn't as much, I should say, right? Generally speaking, home values are going to continue to increase over the long term.
Sure.
But interest rates are fantastic right now. I think there's been, since mortgage rates started, like the average interest rate for a year has been under 4.25, maybe 5 times, maybe 6. Counting 2020. Right now, typically you're in the low 3s, depending on loan type and your specific situation, but you're well under that. So mortgage rates are still near all-time lows.
Right.
They're very, very good, even though they've come up some here over the last several months.
Sure.
So there's a lot of advantages for buyers too. And that's kind of what we're seeing now is there's a lot of buyers that are pre-qualified, that are out there actively searching for homes.
Right.
And just not a whole lot of homes for sale. I think we've seen that tick up a little bit here over the last couple
inventory?
of weeks. A little bit. Not anywhere close to what we would like.
Yeah.
But we're getting into that spring market. So there are going to be more houses coming on the market.
Yeah.
But I would just tell people, be patient.
Yeah.
And when you find the house, don't be scared to offer way more than what you think you should have to, right? At the end of the day, the home's going to have to get appraised, right? And even if you're offering $25,000 over list price, right? The appraisal's going to sort things out at the end of the day. You're not going to be able to overpay unless you choose to do that, right? So just do what you got to do to get the house and let the appraisal sort out the rest.
Interesting.
I think is probably the best advice. Like don't necessarily be scared of paying too much for a house. It's just kind of the way it is right now. Otherwise, if you want to get something at list price, like you're going to have a tough time right now, probably.
Right. That's what I think. That's what I kind of wondered, is I wondered what the general public could expect, because I have, again, we have some of the same like friends that are in the real estate market, and you hear things about people saying like, one of my clients put in 3 offers over list, and none of them were one, like they didn't get the house on any of them, so to hear that is interesting. And how long, so you've been in mortgages for a while, then like how is the inventory in Champaign typically a little bit light normally?
I wouldn't say normally. I mean, it's been light, nowhere close to like it is right now. Inventory's been a problem since I came into mortgage.
Yeah.
But not anything like this,
Sure.
right? I think right now, the last I looked, we were around a 30-day supply.
Right.
And that's real low. Like
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about how it was really low when we had a 60-day supply.
Right.
You know, so
Mm-hmm.
it's, I don't think always, but
Yeah.
it always has been since I've been doing it,
Right.
or keeping track of this type of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then I have a question for you. Let's say there's someone out there watching this. They're interested in possibly pursuing a career in real estate, or maybe they're watching this and they're thinking, well, that seems like a cool gig. What advice would you give to someone that is interested in pursuing a career as a mortgage lender?
Call me. You know, let's talk about it.
What can they expect with this job?
You know, my biggest thing, like my biggest concern when I was making the switch from the car business was like, is this going to be fast paced enough? Is it going to keep my attention? Right. Because in the car business, I was structuring deals for all my salespeople.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of an instant gratification with that you don't necessarily have in on the mortgage side of things. Like right, when the sale's done, it's done. Like it's all done that same day for the most part.
Right.
Whereas in mortgage, like, okay, we do a prequal and then maybe 30 days later we get a contract, and then maybe 30 days after that, you know, we're closing. But it's going to make you think. It's going to, if you like problem solving and figuring out how to make things work, like it's going to be a really good fit. But you have to be able to handle stress well. Like it's not, for me, it's not like, okay, this person can either buy a car or they can't, right? Like that's not ruining anybody's life.
Sure.
Not that, you know, if your house loan falls apart,
like
your life's ruined, but
right.
There's a little bit more on the line.
Yeah, stakes are higher.
A lot of times, you know, you've got a seller that, you know, they need to sell their house in order to buy the next house. So you can get these big dominoes where it's like 4 or 5 transactions long. And if your loan falls apart that you're working on, it can affect literally, you know, 10 families in the area, which is, it's a lot of pressure.
Sure.
But you've got to be able to multitask. You've got to be able to work well under pressure, or it's just probably not going to work out for you.
Gotcha.
So yeah, managing stress and being able to handle multiple things coming at you at the same time and figure it out and get stuff done is definitely probably the best characteristic that you can have to make you successful in this business, I think.
There's a lot of parallels between our jobs. But one of the things that your job has that mine does not is you guys have deadlines. You guys got things that need to be done by certain dates. Closings get scheduled out there.
Oh, we give you deadlines, Austin. Most of the time they don't mean anything, but we do give you deadlines, bud.
There's closings and stuff that are, you know, coming up. Like those dates get set. I talk to people all the time that are working with you, and they're like, we're trying to get this done by this date here. And like the closing date is coming, you know, so I would think that has that's not something that I see a ton of, you know, unless obviously with people buying homes, that's different. But a lot of times they're just quoting their auto insurance or they're looking at some different stuff. We can kind of ease into that, you know, like there's not as much of it. The pressure of the deadline and people, you're trying to juggle the buyer, the seller, all these different people that you have to talk to on your side. That's a little bit of a different thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. I think a lot of my success when I started, Justin trained me. And like the first thing he said was like, communication is the biggest part of it. Not just with the client, but with the agents that are working on both sides of it. Just good, bad, ugly, indifferent. Make sure everybody knows what's going on, and that way nobody's getting blindsided.
Sure.
As you go through the process, like that's worse. You can't solve a problem on your own, right? You need the client's help, and you need to know what's going on. So when an issue does arise, like you've got to get everybody in the loop as quickly as you can to try and figure out, okay, what are my options here? What are the solutions that could work? And, you know, usually you need to kind of talk things out with the client to figure out how that's all going to work. If it's something that's doable for them. Yeah.
This is all good advice. I know that there's most people, I feel like, picture themselves, unless they're in their forever home, that date's out there somewhere where they're like, maybe it's a couple of years out, few years out, whenever I get this paid off or whenever I get this kid into school. So these are good tips on how for people to kind of make sure that they're ready, when that time comes. So I love it. Real quick, plug, promote, whatever else you've got. Let the people know where they can find you one last time.
217mortgage.com. dnelson@fbhl.com is my email. 309-368-8175 is my cell. Feel free to text me or call me. Hopefully we don't get to 400,000 followers. I don't get my phone blown up like that just quite yet. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate all of you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next one.